What you're looking at right now is claimed to be a list of the worst people in the history of humanity, as generated by ChatGPT. These screenshots were posted to Reddit on August 7th, 2023, and predictably, much of the comments can be categorized one of two ways. They're either scrutinizing the list itself, or simply having a laugh at the fact that actor Chevy Chase seems to have made the cut. Though almost certainly the result of user intervention, this is a fantastic shitpost. I mean, Chevy Chase. Gold. But if you're under a certain age, you may read this name being talked about and think to yourself, I don't know who that is. You say it out loud, Chevy Chase. That's fun to say. That's a name that sounds like show business. Why is this name being on this list so goddamn funny? You ever watch BoJack Horseman?
It might seem that...
Oh, shit, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Cornelius Crane Chevy Chase has nothing to do with BoJack Horseman. He doesn't voice anyone, doesn't cameo, isn't name-dropped at all among the litany of pop cultural references on the show. This show about show business doesn't directly mention the guy whatsoever. People in the business seem to not really like talking about Chevy Chase. It makes him sad. Here's a quote from former castmate Donald Glover in an interview with The New Yorker. I just saw Chevy as fighting time. A true artist has to be okay with his reign being over. I can't help him if he's thrashing in the water, but I know there's a human in there somewhere. Before this gets too far along, I want to throw up this other quote from BoJack series creator Raphael Bob Waxberg. The creator of BoJack Horseman goes on record to say that many aspects of the show are not based on any one scandal or person. Characters and plot points will share parallels with and allude to many different people and real-life events, but the character of BoJack shouldn't be pinned as a riff on any one particular person. We have authorial intent laid out very clearly. My purpose here is not to declare any secret truths or to try and solve the true inspiration behind BoJack's character or anything like that. I just have a lot to talk about. Like most people you're too young to have heard of, Chevy Chase had his big break on Saturday Night Live. The year was 1970. No, you know what? You're right. We don't need to do this. Here's a brief history of his career.
You made us laugh so much, and then inexplicably stopped in about 1978.
I mean, there you go. Is that fair? Can we leave it at that? Yeah, let's leave it at that. Looking through his filmography and accolades, this guy was comedy king at one point in time. Both his stay on SNL and following his departure from the show, his movies throughout the late 70s and 80s were met with heaps of both praise and money. He was one of the names in comedy. A fact that you can only really hear nowadays in the past tense. He fizzled out towards the end of the century and hasn't quite been able to unkill his career, despite being given the tools and opportunity to do so.
But it almost recreated his career, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he was
Chevy
really...
kind of disappeared.
Yeah, he was really funny on the show.
Why was he so mad?
I don't know.
Though he is largely considered to have contributed some of the all-time classics to his genre, Chevy's is a career fraught with squandered potential, mistreatment of staff, and a lack of willingness or perhaps ability to learn and change.
When people say, Chevy's been a jerk, are those unfounded cheap shots?
I guess you'd have to ask them. I don't give a crap.
Chevy Chase set a comedy standard. In fact, if someone with a promising career makes a string of bad choices, I call it a Chevy.
It doesn't take a lot of looking to find stories about just how notoriously unpleasant or difficult this guy could be to work with at times. You can find harassment reports of a sexual, racial, and just kind of general manner.
But Chevy was at UCB. We were going to do the show together, and so I thought, well, I got to say hi to him. So I went up to him, like, Chevy, I just want to say, you know, I'm a big fan. I'm Rob Hubel. Chevy just hauled off and slapped me across the face.
I loved you in flex, Chevy.
Diva, histrionics, weird creative demands. Dude's absolutely annihilated more key bridges than a Baltimore cargo ship. One of my favorite tales from the chase is the time he almost got into a fist fight with Bill Murray moments before going on stage for SNL. As the fight was broken up and Chevy was leaving to go on, Murray reportedly shouted, "Medium talent," at him. And I am just obsessed with this insult. Nothing underscores this legacy more aptly, however, than the 2002 Friars Club roast of Chevy Chase.
We only roast the ones we love.
If you haven't heard of the Friars Club roast, later known as the Comedy Central roast, look no further than the helpful synopsis of this episode on IMDb. The tone of these roasts is intended to be a celebration of the guest just accomplished through roasting the shit out of them on live television. They even get a trophy at the end for being such a good sport and everything. This episode on Chevy Chase, however, was infamous for a number of reasons. It's summarized by one IMDb reviewer as a seemingly endless string of unfunny B-list comedy hacks were just downright mean. People say it's hard to watch for being too brutal, too mean-spirited, and not good, with hardly any big names to be seen at the event. In general, roasters tend to be both A, names that pretty much anyone would know, that's like their whole thing, but also 2, they try to keep the speakers somewhat relevant to the guest, you know, former and current castmates, etc. And Chevy Chase in his prime was rubbing elbows with some of the most famous people of the time. This was not a matter of giving the little guy a shot at exposure either. These are the only people who RSVP'd.
My temp agency called this morning and...
There were a couple speakers who had worked with Chevy, but this was not the majority. According to IMDb trivia, as soon as the roast was over, Chase went straight to his hotel room and sobbed the entire night, sinking into a depression while Paul Schaefer comforted him. Giving the roast a watch, which I do not recommend, by the way, it really does live up to this reputation. There are a couple quote-worthy zingers, but it's largely a completely joyless experience.
This actually isn't a roast, Chevy. It's an intervention. We are all here. We want you to stop making movies, television, anything. Please stop. You're out of control. You're in denial. No one wants you to work anymore but you. It's selfish.
For the most part, the jokes aren't light-hearted jabs. They're impersonal and precision cuts about addiction, failed relationships, and careers.
But I think a serious contribution that Chevy has made to our society is to show people how to deal with a chemical dependency problem. I'm talking, of course, about Chevy's heroic struggle against his addiction to back pills. When Chevy Chase announced that he was going to the Betty Ford Clinic for his dependency on back pills, it sent a message to America that addiction isn't confined to illegal drugs, like, let's say, cocaine.
Which, yeah, they usually make jokes about. It's just kind of a vibe thing this time around. You who worked with him, you know, got to know him more as a person, could be bothered to come. So the only thing that most of the speakers know about him is that he was mega successful, his career is now dead because of his thoroughly documented shittiness. The painful irony of this lack of star power, so to speak, is something that both the event itself and the speakers were not afraid to flaunt. The opening musical number is all about how they couldn't get anybody good.
Please welcome our roast master, Paul Schaefer.
Tonight is Chevy's big night. We called his friends to invite them all to join us and roast him, but none of them would.
Does he have a career? I thought he died last year.
We couldn't get anybody good.
A common theme throughout almost every one of these people's sets is this open mocking of the fact that a name as big as Chevy's could only manage to scrounge up a bunch of self-described nobodies.
He said, who the hell are these guys? I'm being roasted by nobodies. How can it be funny? And at least, you know, I'm a nobody at the beginning of my career.
Chevy was faced with the reality that this is how poorly he is regarded by his peers at the top. No one even wanted to come make fun of the guy.
Anyway, traditionally this is the point when the roastee has the chance to get even with all the other comedians. But there aren't any.
Also, the episode was sponsored by Roller Coaster Tycoon 2.
Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 for the PC. Feeling the urge to create a bigger ride?
I just wanted to share this. One of the plots to a season 6 episode of BoJack Horseman follows a slice of Gina Cazador's acting career after her time with BoJack on the set of Filbert. The scar that BoJack's presence in her life has left on her psyche is on full display here. She's developed a fair bit since we'd seen her last. Developed new insecurities about her status among the cast, developed new fears about stunts. She's shown lashing out at the director, her co-star, to an outside observer seeming to generally embody that diva stereotype. We, the audience, know the underlying cause behind pretty much all of it. We have the context to understand how BoJack's treatment of her, his snide comments about billing, and his assault during a stunt could reasonably lead to these fears. We have the benefit of musical stings and cinematography to let us know how Gina is thinking and feeling in these moments, but no one on her current set has access to her inner world like that. After Gina storms off, the director is at a breaking point. He's later asked by a fellow director if he thinks that Gina would be a good fit for the leading role in her film. More than just that though, there's a lot riding on this particular moment in this director's career, so she needs to keep the set as frictionless as possible. And after his experience earlier,
I can't recommend her.
and this is very clearly hard for him to say. He's not portrayed as emotionally ignorant. He knows something is likely wrong. He's shown being empathetic and patient, but having that patience pushed. He can't, in good conscience, recommend her for a film set that can't afford altercations or upsets like the one they just had. This is as effective as it is in part because we have an entire season of Gina to compare her behavior here with. No, she wasn't a particularly peppy person before, but she was professional and amicable, and these qualities were very important to her. We got to know the type of guy she is before being shown some contrasting behavior that hinders the people around her. Her defense mechanisms and fear were made fully known and understandable to the audience, and at the same time she's made to feel the impact of her actions through the impact they have on the people around her. This whole subplot is commenting on a lot of different things, by the way. I'm just highlighting one relevant takeaway. Who she is, what she's gone through, does not factor into the fallout of what she does. In this case, that fallout being suffering in her career. This whole little detour is to point out that even beyond just BoJack's character, BoJack Horseman as a show takes a pretty clear stance in general on conversations surrounding damaged people paying forward that damage to those around them. Or, in other words, a direct comparison to BoJack's character isn't fully necessary for the ideas explored in the show to apply. Regardless of how much your views align with the position the show takes, I feel like it's still valuable in these conversations because of how thoroughly it examines this position. It makes quite the case for itself over its 6 seasons anyway. Old, recovered, and ready to work, but unable to stop his lingering reputation from screening his calls for him, the show would argue that it's an oversimplification to attribute Chevy's current situation to he's just a bad guy, that the inner character of someone, regardless of the hardship that formed it, isn't really so impactful in comparison to the actions that person actually takes.
There's no such thing as bad guys or good guys. We're all just guys who do good stuff sometimes and bad stuff sometimes, and all we can do is try to do less bad stuff and more good stuff. But you're never going to be good because you're not bad. So you need to stop using that as an excuse.
It is with this context in mind that I acknowledge the 2007 Chevy Chase biography done by Rena Frutcher. Part 1 of the book is largely a recount of Chase's experience growing up in a severely neglectful and abusive household. Sparing the details, the biography paints this picture of a damaged man who never really had a chance to form a healthy relationship either with people as a whole nor with his own sense of self-worth. A man who turned to substances and a brash, larger-than-life personality to cope and protect himself. When this book came out, it was the wider public's first real look into the why of Chevy Chase. Upon being reached out to during the writing of the biography, here's what Bill Murray had to say about the whole endeavor. I'm Bill Murray, so I'm gonna be mean to you.
No, that's fine. Hello, Mr. Murray? I'm Rena Frutcher. I'm writing an authorized biography of Chevy Chase, and I'd like to speak with you.
What a stupid thing to do! Why on earth would you want to write a biography of Chevy?
Well, he's got an interesting story to tell. A great career, a difficult childhood.
Stop right there. That's still the dumbest thing I've ever heard. He should write it himself.
Well, actually, he doesn't really want to write it himself. He's cooperating. I ask him a lot of provocative questions. Look, will you talk to me or not?
I'm a very busy person. I don't know much about Chevy.
Well, you've worked with him.
Who told you that?
Look, if you don't want to speak with me, that's okay. I just assumed you would enjoy talking about Chevy.
Now you're manipulating me. Fuck you. Maybe not the reaction that was hoped for. During their fateful encounter past the curtains of the SNL stage, though Chevy may have been exchanging blows with the ghost of his childhood, they landed on Bill Murray. Actually, they landed on one of the Belushis, I forget which, who jumped in between them to break up the fight, but you know what I mean. With added perspective, perhaps we, the wider public, can better understand why Chevy treats people the way he has, but it's up to those he's actually interacted with to decide what they want to do with that perspective. Bridges can be rebuilt after they've been burned down, but an acknowledgement of why the fire was started doesn't put down new lumber.
You need to be...
The cautionary tale of fame and influence that is Chevy Chase is sadly not a unique one.
BoJack's not perfect. There are plenty of other celebrities who have done much worse things, and it hasn't hurt their careers.
Like who?
I don't know, like Mike Tyson, or Sean Penn, or Josh Brolin, or Christian Slater, Woody Allen, Hank Hippopoulos, Bill Murray.
Hi, all my hair fell off. In all the research I've done on Chevy Chase, I found lots of examples of him being a racist, sexist asshole, and that one story of him slapping that guy for saying hi. He's done and said a lot of vile stuff to people over the years. His career is in the pits because people have this idea of him. He's mean, he's a bad guy, I don't like him. But, and I don't like that this is where the bar is either, but hopefully you can see what I'm getting at here. I didn't find any, sex crimes. Chevy's career is suffering so much more for him being a mean, bad dude who's hard to work with than those of some actual criminals in his industry.
Even Roman Polanski works more than I do, and he should be in actual jail.
Yeah, for his last couple of movies at least, right? Woof.
No. Not for his last couple of movies.
Am I saying he doesn't deserve consequences for his words and deeds? No, I'm absolutely not saying that. This whole idea is what's being discussed in this arc of the show.
What do you have against Hank Hippopoulos? Everyone says he's a really nice guy.
Good point.
That's exactly the problem. Because he's so nice, people don't want to think he's capable of awful things, so they let him off the hook.
The public, the industry, whatever, doesn't care what goes on behind closed doors. It's how much noise you make. Chevy is so unabashedly himself. He doesn't try to hide the racist asshole within. He makes a lot of noise. He's hard to work with. He'll call you a prick, or worse, and walk off set. Don't work with that guy. It seems like you're more likely to lose your Hollywood career by being unpleasant than you are if you commit certain crimes.
If I have to go to jail, that is really going to throw a monkey wrench into my awards campaign. The Academy does not look kindly on murder. Rape, they don't seem to have a problem with.
Anyway, I have to grow my hair back out for the rest of the video now. This is why BoJack Horseman can't be said to be Chevy Chase or any other one scandalous celebrity. While unique in the details, their stories are still a dime a dozen. Both the horse and the man are simply what can and does too often happen when wealth, power, and influence over others mix with, let's just say, underlying issues. But zoom out a bit. What we have so far is this hard knocks bred former big shot that no one wants to work with because he's been an arrogant, self-righteous asshole not learning the error of his ways before it's too late. Now, of course, when you word it that way, it sure does sound an awful lot like a certain 6-season-long, cult classic, unconventional sitcom. Of course, I'm talking about Community. This show was influential in many ways, namely by being a launchpad for the careers of several talents, and a chance at a new start for Chevy's. The show is not perfect. While its highs absolutely soar, the lows can get pretty low. Not all of it's aged so gracefully. Chevy's character being the catalyst for much of this. Not all of it, just most of it. Pierce Hawthorne is
the dried-up heir to a moist towelette empire who would prove to be the dried-up heir to a moist towelette empire.
Pierce Hawthorne is a bumbling man-child of generational wealth in a world both beneath and completely alien to him. His foremost character traits include being a sheltered bigot, having more money than he knows what to do with, being generally inept and clumsy, with a massive ego, and everything you would expect to come from someone like this.
If, and I mean if, the culprit is among us.
This role was tailor-made for a more modern-day Chevy Chase. Chevy was used to playing the lovable dad who's trying his best, or some other example of a idealized masculine idol role. He's the guy they want the audience to like, the guy who gets all the laughs. Funny man, fall down. This was quite the departure. This is a character who is the joke. Now it's funny man, fall down. Despite this potential conflict, this was a chance at reformation, a new beginning. All he had to do to potentially completely turn around both his public image and career was to have a good sense of humor about himself and his past, and to not be a piece of shit to the crew.
Foreshadowing, it was actually...
You can get an understanding of Chevy's time on the show by taking a look at his character on the show, and we'll get to why in a bit.
Who among us?
Season 1 Pierce is written with this questionably redeeming quality, where he has a lot of his own brand of world-weary wisdom to offer the rest of the cast. He's shown coaching the other characters on topics such as self-reliance, emotional regulation, and coping with failure, among other things.
When I was a CEO, I had an array of masculine sneezes.
The writers took a lot of care in portraying someone as awful as this fucking guy as still having something to offer. He's your grandpa, sure, he uses black as a noun, but he's still always there for you to sit up on his knee and talk about your woes. He's a bad dude, but he isn't a villain in the story. Then in Season 2, he gets an entire villain arc, and it's the best stretch of episodes in the whole show. Fight me. For Season 2, the writers took out all of the stops, portraying Pierce as an absolute monster. They do not pretend that he's redeemable. He's just all problems all the time. In many Season 2 episodes, Pierce takes on a much more directly antagonistic role in the narrative than he did previously. In Seasons 3 and 4, they dial back Pierce's newfound role in the show as an antagonist. They give him a whole daddy issues thing, and he's a bit declawed from that point forward. Doesn't really drive the stories as much. He's still the out-of-touch rich bigot. You still get that epic race humor, but the show's attitude towards Pierce shifts again. He's back to just a supporting character, but not in the same ways that he was in Season 1. They lean a lot more heavily on the pathetic old man side of his character. For instance, where a Season 1 subplot would have him helping Shirley with her public speaking skills using his experience as a businessman, now he's funding Shirley's business because he has nothing else to do with his sad old man money. See what I mean? Now he's not even evil and fun. He's drinking pens for half an episode. At this point in the script, I had to edit out a very long tangent about my feelings on this change. I'm already kind of all over the place, so I think that's best for another time. I don't think I'm the only one for whom this particular change in direction was contentious, but it was the direction that was chosen. Besides, there are some actually relevant issues with it that we can talk about, such as how he's not really given enough screen time in Seasons 3 and 4 to really undo the damage that Season 2 did to his character. From Season 3 onward, when it's time for a Pierce bit, you get his bigotry and an increased focus on senility jokes, but not much else. Pierce is almost entirely absent from some of the best episodes of Season 3, especially as it goes on and the one plan they had for the character gets wrapped up. He doesn't really get much to do. In Season 4, he is entirely absent for some episodes. Despite Season 4's problems, to its credit, I do kinda like the portrayal of Pierce here, you know, when he's there. There's traces of a more refined Season 1 Pierce here. He's given more time in that estranged grandfather role, you know, still being himself, but also being legitimately sweet and mentor-like at times. Can't forget that epic race humor either. That's something relevant here with Season 4. The sensibilities in its edgy humor are a bit different from the previous seasons in ways that are hard to quantify. And I don't need to, because at least Chevy Chase seemed to agree with this. Season 4, if you didn't know, was headed by different showrunners from the other 5 seasons. It was also the season that Chevy Chase was fired from Community.
Tired of this happening to you?
The on-set and off-set drama between Chevy and Community showrunner slash guy what made Rick and Morty Dan Harmon is pretty common knowledge at this point. Both men have separately cultivated their own reputations over the years for being hard to work with, so naturally they would frequently butt heads over the course of production.
I was eating a hot dog on set, and he goes like, "Where's Joe Russo? Where's Joe Russo? Do you know where Joe Russo is?" And he looked over at me, and I went, I don't know. He's like, "What, are you gonna just eat that hot dog, you prick?"
Harmon infamously played a rude voicemail Chevy left him for a room full of people at a live event.
You're not funny. You're okay.
Oh, wait. Back up. Murray reportedly shouted, "Medium talent," at him. Huh. And, you know, Chevy the whole time was doing Chevy things.
Did you see some nastiness?
Oh my, yes.
Like the worst of the worst?
Fuck, yeah. Hi. There's a chapter in the book that I wrote about fighting him. Step by step on how to fight Chevy Chase. And then it always turned into sex.
Making the rest of the cast uncomfortable in ways including, but not limited to, trying to make Donald Glover break with racially charged jokes. It was not Dan Harmon who fired Chevy Chase, though. You see, Dan had already been fired separately, so he had nothing to do with Season 4. No, Chevy allegedly got himself fired by dropping a racial slur and a passionate complaint about the writing of his character being too racist. This is all trivia that most terminally online fans of the show are probably already familiar with. What may not be as familiar, though, is the role that this on-set behavior played in the way that Pierce was characterized in the show. See, not only was the role of Pierce tailor-made for a modern-day Chevy Chase, but this trajectory of the character that we've outlined may have been formed largely by Chevy as a person. We may have been okay watching Chevy as part of an ensemble, but I think he felt like he was wilting away inside. I think he felt like it was symptomatic of some kind of twilight for him, which only excited me more and made me want to focus on that aspect of his character. I'm not saying that guy what made Rick and Morty Dan Harmon vindictively made Pierce more evil and pathetic just because Chevy was so much worse than he was expecting. But if I was saying that, those are definitely the words I would use. There are many lines of dialogue written for Pierce that are confirmed by Dan to have come from the mouth of Chevy Chase.
Like all the dialogue wasn't lifted from the meetings where he'd summon us to his trailer. I swear to God, so many lines of dialogue were just written in the margins of the script during meetings in his trailer.
66, dick. Did fuck with the kit on a...
Wait, I'm not here to litigate whether or not actor Chevy Chase actually had sex with Eartha Kitt in an airplane bathroom, but bear with me here. Chevy's had problems with the way that his character's been written in the past. As we established, he could be vocal about not liking the writing at times. They've had to rewrite scenes and an entire ending once because Chevy would simply refuse. If Chevy didn't want to say it, he could, to a certain degree, influence it out of the script. So imagine for a second, you're Chevy Chase. I'm sorry. You either did or didn't have sex with Eartha Kitt in an airplane bathroom, but regardless, you've told people you have. The character you play in your television show weirdly has this same experience. It's even ambiguous if the character is telling the truth or not. And like I said, Chevy eventually gets fired, allegedly, for complaining just so passionately about the writing. So, were there just no objections to seeing this in the script?
And then we'd write him in the script, and then he'd be like, "Now we're talking." He just would never remember saying this stuff.
I'm old white man says. No wonder he says everything I'm thinking.
Anyway, doesn't matter. Chevy's actions and the writer's opinions of him had an undeniable influence on Chevy's character in the show. This fed back into Chevy's view of the writing, ultimately,
allegedly,
leading to him getting fired. Now, the degree to which this was a factor can only be speculation, but we know that it was a factor. Honestly, I don't envy Chevy's time on set. No, it doesn't justify the way he was, but he's a grumpy old man coming over from an illustrious...
Did I say illustrious? Am I illiterate?
...film career over to a TV show run by Dan Harmon. You can find interviews with much of the cast and Dan himself about how just disorganized, chaotic, and behind schedule their set was throughout pretty much the entire run of the show.
We were so happy with that act break, but we didn't know what to do with it. And we still didn't when we started shooting it.
I mean, I work in animation now where you can just make people draw stuff, and we're not that ballsy. We had human beings that had to show up, and we were like, man, we'll figure it out. And we wrote it till 11 a.m., did shots of whiskey to wake us up, brought it in time for the table read, and one of them said, we wish you had turned this in on time so we could have thrown it in the garbage. And I was so proud because I was like, this justifies everything about my horrible dysfunctions. This is the most enabling thing that could ever happen to me.
Your boss is an alcoholic who's slowly been turning your character more and more into a caricature made to mock you. When you get the pages on time, which isn't ever a guarantee, the hours are still grueling and long and spent in a stuffy room surrounded by people who just don't seem to like you as much as you like you.
We didn't have the budget to go outside normally, so that we were just excited to have sunlight.
Images of your parties and the golden age of your career dance through your head as Allison Brie and Danny Pudi go off script for a bit that doesn't even make it into the episode. They don't bounce off of you like that. A big point of focus for Pierce's character is this cycle he finds himself stuck in, where he's an asshole, so the group excludes him, which makes him retaliate by being an asshole, and the cycle continues. Imagine having to act out this self-destructive pattern, which so closely mirrors your own. How can you be expected to heal if your job is to embody this character, to become him for a time every day? If people see Pierce when they look at Chevy, why, you could write a season of television about those psychological implications.
I don't like him. Filbert. He's a drunk. He's an asshole. I don't want to be him.
But the story of Community isn't really about Pierce Hawthorne, and there are legitimate thematic parallels between the stories of Community and BoJack Horseman that I think are really interesting to discuss.
Would you like to have gay sex with me?
The shows definitely don't occupy the same space. Community is much more of a sitcom, where I would say BoJack is a drama that is funny. You're not tuning into Community every week to follow the epic of Jeff Winger's character journey.
My daddy said he would stay with my mommy forever, and he left.
Community does have an overarching narrative, though. It's the story of ex-fake lawyer Jeff Winger trying to earn his credentials back and maybe finding his humanity along the way. Or attempting to. We'll talk about it. One of the most prevalent themes in Community is television. That's not a theme. How our entertainment media raises us, how it shapes our view of people and relationships, how it can prepare us or fail to properly prepare us for real life. This theme is most directly explored through the character of Abed Nadir, a special boy with a troubled home life who is essentially raised by television. More than just that, though, he has such a connection with this media that he'll frequently replicate behaviors he sees in that media and draw connections between it and his actual life to inform his decisions.
Because it's starting to feel like a bottle episode.
Again with the TV crap.
This is how he's able to connect with the world around him. He has trouble understanding and being understood by people, but television, that is something he gets. Television has structure, logic, rules, and it tends to be about people, so good enough, right? And though Abed is the most direct way this theme is explored, it's important to note just how deeply ingrained this theme is to the narrative as a whole and to our main character. Jeff Winger was recently disbarred after it was exposed that he had faked his credentials and cheated on the LSAT to become a lawyer. He'd led a very successful life up until this point, pretending to be a lawyer. You know, the made-up TV land kind that only ever does trials. Keep this made-up TV land concept in mind. Jeff is a character in a TV show. He's a stereotype. He has a wacky, ridiculous backstory that could only ever happen in a TV show. He's been able to keep this up because of just how good he is at people chess.
I discovered at a very early age that if I talk long enough, I could make anything right or wrong. So either I'm God or truth is relative. And in either case, booyah.
Oh, interesting. It's just the average person has a much harder time saying booyah to moral relativism.
He won't hesitate to try and usually succeed to lie to or to use the people around him to his own ends.
What are you doing after this?
Probably trying a couple of boot cuts. But after that, maybe like a blazer.
To borrow an analogy from Abed, Jeff is Goldie Hawn in Overboard, an arrogant, powerful, rich asshole who gets pushed off the boat to go live amongst the commoners and maybe finally learn what it means to be a human being. Abed says this in the first 8 episodes, I think. The show is highlighting just how ubiquitous this trope is. The relationship between Jeff and Abed, both their friendship and how their backstories relate to each other, do so much heavy lifting for the show's themes of television shaping our world. Just like Abed, Jeff too had a troubled home life. I know, this guy?
Okay, Black Rider. Now let's see who's attractive.
Dude, you have a problem.
Also being raised mostly by television, as the connection between Jeff and Abed progresses, we realize they are 2 branches of the same path.
Tell your disappointment to suck it. I'm doing a bottle episode.
Jeff, with his stereotype, cocky, womanizing protagonist persona, is also simply replicating the behaviors of the sitcoms he was raised by. He has internalized what metrics to measure success by from this media. Sex, wealth, control, sex. He has a lot of sex. Learned it from TV. When he loses that success, he comes to Greendale to try and get it back. The universe of the show sees this as a learning opportunity. It's not too late for him. Surely. Jeff's goal is to earn his credentials back and return to his old life, but the story's goals for Jeff are to try and get him to change. The show begins to argue that someone like Jeff is still able to turn it around. It'll take a lot of internal work, but maybe if presented with the right obstacles, perhaps a ragtag group of misfits written precisely in ways to challenge and reshape his core beliefs, he can come out the other side a changed man. He falls off the boat and is rescued, dragged back to the Greendale at shore to start this process. Throughout the run of the show, we see Jeff go from resisting change to welcoming it. Some of the earliest episodes will revolve around Jeff taking advantage of these people in some way and learning a lesson about the value of friendship or whatever.
It's pretty alarming behavior, Jeff. You know, there's specialists you could talk to.
Yeah, maybe I should do that.
We see firsthand the impact that these people are having on Jeff. We see the lessons that he takes away from them. So let's check in with Jeff at the end of his hero's journey the universe crafted specifically for him to go on. At the end of the show, Jeff is a law teacher at Greendale, a fake law teacher where his smooth talking and half-assery shield him from ever having to do any actual work in his job or on himself.
I was a phony lawyer. I got caught, and now I teach a pretty phony class.
His found family have outgrown him and are mostly moving on with their lives, leaving him behind at Greendale. Sure, they might get together again in the future.
Probably.
Probably. Maybe.
Probably. Maybe. Probably.
In a way, Jeff ends the show in pretty much the exact position he started before being exposed, being a fake authority figure who is rewarded for his ability to keep up a farce. Only now he's traded his wealth and status for crippling alcoholism. Ooh. This is like the monkey's paw version of Jeff accomplishing his goal, and a straight up failure to achieve the story's goals for Jeff. What happened here? We saw the lessons he learned, he checked the boxes and did the things. Now it's time for the happy ending, where he finds peace with all the connections made along the journey.
Because of the
Prophecy? Dark side.
You know, that sort of thing. What we're left to realize is that Jeff Winger has not changed in the ways necessary to earn the hero's ending to the story. He was a hero not cut out for the journey. There's a line in the pilot that I think can act as a great thesis for Jeff's character progression.
The tools you acquired to survive out there will not help you here at Greendale.
Looking at where Jeff ends up, you may be inclined to disagree. Clearly, all he's done is learn to apply those same tools to surviving at Greendale. But did they help him? Did he pass the universe's Greendale trials? Did he learn what his story was trying to teach him? I'm being serious. As silly and edgy as the show is, there's some pretty powerful symbolism behind Greendale. The Greendale human beings. You're already accepted.
Because if crazy people can't be at Greendale, where are we supposed to go?
Jeff Winger was given a chance to find his humanity through the language he's most at home with. Television. The wacky and cartoony setting of Greendale, the meticulous prodding and winking at, but rarely ever breaking of the fourth wall. The show is about this man raised on stories like this who finds himself the protagonist in an Overboard type story, one who gets the bad ending. We watch Jeffrey fall off the boat, get dragged back to shore, and then slowly be eaten by the scary monster that followed him out of the sea. I'm aware that lots of turmoil behind the scenes made it so that Community maybe wasn't able to be the story that it set out to be. But we are left with a final product, and I feel like this hero who fails the journey reading is a legitimate one. He's sent somewhere for the universe to teach him a lesson. He doesn't learn it, so there he stays until he does, maybe in the movie. Sometimes, for some people, it takes more than the run of a sitcom, more than tropey trials to really overcome deeply entrenched issues. Some people never do overcome them, even when presented with the tools and opportunity to do so. Stories, television, especially sitcoms, can leave us the impression that when you're the main character in your story, if you check all the boxes and wrap everything up in a nice, virtuous gesture, a grand Winger speech to take us home, things will be back to normal next time. No matter how badly you mess up, you'll get the nice ending to your story because you earned it. But life isn't a story or TV show. Even when it is, our lessons will sometimes not be learned before it's too late, not before our side characters spin off without us. Just because you've been handed an opportunity to change doesn't mean you have changed. You still have to work for it.
Funny thing about being smart is that you can get through most of life without ever having to do any work. So, not really sure how to do that.
If the subtext present in Community that I've laid out is ringing any bells for you, that may be because it's pretty straightforwardly some of the text of BoJack Horseman.
I got into this business because I love stories. They comfort us, they inspire us, they create a context for how we experience the world. But also you have to be careful, because if you spend a lot of time with stories, you start to believe that life is just stories, and it's not. Life is life.
All I know about being good, I learned from TV. And in TV, flawed characters are constantly showing people they care with these surprising grand gestures, and I think that part of me still believes that's what love is. But in real life, the big gesture isn't enough. You need to be consistent. You need to be dependably good. You can't just screw everything up and then take a boat out in the ocean to save your best friend or solve a mystery and fly to Kansas. You need to do it every day, which is so hard.
BoJack is a much more thematically and narratively rich story than Community is. I wouldn't begin to claim otherwise. There's just so much more that BoJack is about in comparison. But at their core, they share very similar ideologies when it comes to television's role in our culture. BoJack Horseman expands upon these ideas of children of unstable households turning to television to inform their characters and morals by relating these ideas to the entertainment industry itself, to those children, teenagers, young adults for whom entertainment media may be their only escape from a painful reality. The ones in that industry, the creators of our media, have a responsibility. Those being paid comfy wages to provide the rest of us a source of escapism, whether they like it or not, are creating life blueprints for people at formative points in their lives.
If Filbert is just a way to help dumb assholes rationalize their own awful behavior, well, I'm sorry, but we can't put this out there. I don't want you or anyone else justifying their shitty behavior because of the show.
These are two shows that have observed this and have the balls to hold a mirror up to the industry and say, these are the people you are helping to create. Community, with its misguided leading man fighting against a flawed worldview gained from the television of his childhood, and BoJack Horseman, which shows us that even the ones in the industry can still fall victim to it. It gives me, personally, hope for any potential young future BoJacks or Jeffs and Abeds or Chevy Chases that they have this conscious media to turn to. Shows that are like a good friend who can help you up when you fall, remind you that others have been where you are before and made it through okay, but still hold you responsible for those that you take down with you. The biggest impact on culture that BoJack Horseman specifically may have had is now if you go into the comments of any article or forum post about some scandalous celebrity, you're likely to see at least one, OMG, this guy is literally BoJack, isn't he? Is this a wrong sentiment? Referring back to the earlier quote from BoJack series creator Raphael Bob Waxberg, I could understand seeing this as missing the point. The way I see it, however, is that this lack of definitive one-to-one real-life counterpart only strengthens any interpretation of BoJack's character. This intentional vagueness, to me, is what's being confirmed in this quote. He's not meant to be any one of these people. He is any one of these people. Despite no mention whatsoever in the text of the show, Chevy Chase is equally as BoJack as Bob Saget or John Stamos or anyone else. Not at all, and yes, entirely. All of these stories are just flavors of what wealth and influence can do to the brain when said brain already has a lot going on. BoJack Horseman as a show couldn't exist without a celebrity culture around television that produces people like Chevy Chase. Both BoJack and Community wouldn't exist without television acting as some people's only source of values and role models growing up. The stories of BoJack Horseman, Chevy Chase, and Community can all be read as their own cautionary tales about television. And it's about television their story was told. I'm done. I'm done. I did it. Fuck you.